There's a killer among us. You are floating in a rattling spacecraft, confined to a series of cold, sterile rooms with 9 other people. Your mission is simple, almost mundane. Complete your tasks. Fix the wiring and electrical. Empty the garbage chute. Swipe the admin card again and again. But one of you is not who they say they are. One of you is an imposter, a saboteur, a silent murderer. Suddenly, an alarm blares, a body is reported, the emergency meeting is called. Everyone gathers in the cafeteria, their colorful, armless avatars staring blankly. And the accusations begin. Where was red? Blue was following me. Purple is acting sus. In this moment, logic fails and paranoia takes over. Your survival depends not on reflexes or skill, but on deception, manipulation, and social calculus. Can you trust your friends? Can you even trust yourself? This is the simple, brutal, and addictive loop of Among Us. In the summer of 2020, as the world locked its doors, this obscure indie game suddenly and impossibly became the most popular game on Earth. It wasn't new. It had been released 2 years earlier by a tiny 3-person development team, and it nearly been abandoned. So what happened? What perfect storm of global events, cultural anxieties, and raw human psychology transformed this simple party game into a worldwide phenomenon? How did a cartoon astronaut with a knife become a defining symbol for a world gripped by isolation, mistrust, and a desperate, fundamental need for human connection? When we were all forced apart, why did we choose to come together in a game that tears us apart? And what does its explosive rise and just as rapid return to Earth tell us about the nature of trust, community, and the imposter inside all of us? To understand the explosion, you must first understand the 2 years of silence. The story of Among Us does not begin in 2020. It begins in 2018 with a tiny, unknown independent game studio called InnerSloth. This wasn't a sprawling campus of developers. It was just 3 friends. Forrest Willard, the programmer who built the game's entire online infrastructure from scratch. Marcus Bromander, the artist who designed the simple, iconic, and armless crewmates. And Amy Liu, an artist and designer who helped shape the game's look and feel. Their entire operation was based on a simple, shared passion for creating games they wanted to play. The idea for Among Us, originally titled Space Mafia, came from Bromander. It was a direct translation of a classic party game. You might know it as Mafia or Werewolf. It's a game of social deduction, a parlor game where a small, hidden group of killers must secretly eliminate a larger group of townsfolk, while the townsfolk try to identify and vote out the killers. The core concept is as old as campfires and sleepovers, a game of lies, accusations, and paranoia played face-to-face. InnerSloth's innovation was to digitize this experience. The setting, a spaceship, was a natural fit. It provided a confined, claustrophobic environment, and the tasks were a stroke of genius. They served as a plausible cover for the crewmates, but more importantly, they were a tool for the imposter. Tasks forced players to isolate themselves in remote, dangerous corners of the map, like the infamous electrical room. They created vulnerability. The first map, the Skeld, became a masterclass in this simple, elegant design. When Among Us first launched on mobile app stores in June 2018, it made no impact. It was a commercial and critical failure. The player count was almost 0. For months, Forrest Willard has stated, the game's concurrent player base struggled to break into double digits. On a good day, maybe 20 people in the world were playing it at the same time. The reason was simple. The game had launched as local multiplayer only.
To play, you and your friends had to be in the same room, connected to the same Wi-Fi network. It was a digital board game, but it lacked the crucial online component needed to reach a critical mass. It was a game about connection that was fundamentally disconnected from the way people played games online. Most studios would have abandoned the project. It was a dead-on-arrival flop. But InnerSloth saw a tiny flickering spark. The few people who did play it loved it. So, against the odds, Willard undertook the massive technical challenge of rebuilding the game to support online multiplayer. This update, released in late 2018 alongside a PC version on the platform Steam, was the first critical pivot. It saved the game from total obscurity, but it didn't make it a hit. Throughout 2019, Among Us was a niche curiosity. It was not a success by any financial measure. It found small, dedicated communities in unexpected corners of the globe. The first signs of life came not from the United States or Europe, but from South Korea and Brazil. A few streamers in these countries found the game and shared it with their audiences. This provided InnerSloth with just enough revenue and, more importantly, enough motivation to keep going. They weren't getting rich, but they had a cult following. They did what dedicated indie developers do. They supported their small community. They released a second map, Mira HQ, in August 2019. Then a third, Polis, in November. Each new map added variety and signaled to its small player base that the developers were still listening. By the beginning of 2020, Among Us was considered a finished, if unsuccessful, project. The team at InnerSloth had decided to move on. The game's code, built in a hurry by a single programmer, was notoriously difficult to update. The team's next project was not going to be a new map. It was going to be a sequel. In a blog post, they announced their plans for Among Us 2, a new game that would be built from the ground up, fixing all the mistakes of the original. The first Among Us was, in their minds, complete. It had existed for 2 years in the vast, indifferent ocean of the Steam and App Stores, a charming, flawed experiment with a small, loyal following. It was a digital ghost ship, its journey over. And then, in July of 2020, the world changed. The global pandemic had forced billions of people into isolation. We were all trapped in our own versions of the Skeld, separated, bored, and starved of genuine social interaction. We didn't just want entertainment, we needed a new way to be together. That same month, a popular English-language Twitch streamer known as Sodapoppin, looking for a new party game to play with his high-profile streamer friends, stumbled upon the 2-year-old game. He played it live for an audience of tens of thousands. The spark had just met a powder keg. The world was about to discover the imposter.
The explosion that began in July 2020 was unprecedented. In a matter of weeks, a 2-year-old game with the player base of nearly zero, a game that had been all but abandoned by its creators, was suddenly everywhere. The spark wasn't just the streamer Sodapoppin. It was that he played it in a lobby filled with other massive streaming personalities. This single event, a dream team collaboration of influencers, acted as a cultural detonator. But for an A-bomb to go off, you don't just need a spark, you need the perfect fissile material. And in the summer of 2020, the entire world was a powder keg of social isolation, anxiety, and profound, agonizing boredom. The why of Among Us isn't a single reason, but a perfect psychological storm. First, and most critically, was the pandemic. The world had stopped. Billions of people were confined to their homes, and the social fabric that connects us, schools, offices, bars, family gatherings, had been vaporized overnight. We were desperate for connection, but the tools we had were sterile and unsatisfying. Zoom calls became synonymous with work, structure, and exhaustion. They were a necessary but joyless digital translation of real-world interaction. What humanity craved was not another meeting, but a new playground. We didn't want to just see our friends on a screen, we wanted to do something with them. Among Us provided this in the most accessible way possible. It was not a complex 100-hour fantasy epic. It wasn't a high-skill competitive shooter. Its genius was its simplicity. The game was available for free on mobile and for a few dollars on PC. Crucially, it could be run on almost any device, from a high-end gaming rig to a 5-year-old smartphone. This technical accessibility was the gateway to its social accessibility. A group of friends, a family, or a classroom of students, all trapped in their respective homes, could instantly connect and play. The rules could be learned in a single round. Do your tasks. Don't get killed. Find the killer. It was a digital version of tag, hide and seek, and a murder mystery all rolled into one. But this accessibility only explains why people could play it. The reason they did, obsessively, was because of the raw psychological triggers embedded in its core loop. The game is a masterclass in weaponizing paranoia. It is, at its heart, a game about two of the most powerful social forces we experience: trust and deception. For the majority of players, the crewmates, the game is a high-stakes detective story. The cognitive dissonance is immediate and thrilling. The person on Discord laughing and joking with you, the person you've known for 10 years, might be silently and methodically murdering you. You have to question everything. The game forces you to become a behavioral analyst. Why did red stop moving for a second? Why is blue defending pink so aggressively? Where exactly were you when the lights went out? It provides an immense dopamine rush when your social deduction is proven correct, when you successfully identify the imposter and save the crew. But the real, addictive, and transgressive thrill came from being the imposter. For a few minutes, the game gives you a license to do what society forbids: lie, manipulate, and betray. It's a safe, consequence-free environment to be the bad guy. The psychological rush of a successful deception, of flawlessly lying to a lobby of 8 people and winning, is potent. It's a performance. You must invent alibis, deflect suspicion, and strategically gaslight your closest friends. You are the shark in a pool of swimmers, the wolf in sheep's clothing. This fantasy of the hidden predator, the secret agent, is a powerful one. Among Us gave hundreds of millions of people a taste of that power. This dynamic, the hunter and the hunted, made the game the single most perfect piece of content for the streaming era. Unlike skill-based esports where viewers watch superhuman reflexes, Among Us is a game of personality. The product wasn't the gameplay, the product was the interaction. The high-emotion moments, the sudden betrayal, the 200 IQ deduction, the perfectly executed lie were driven entirely by human drama. When superstars of the streaming world like XQC, Pokimane, Disguised Toast, and Corpse Husband began playing in the same lobbies, it created a coliseum of charisma. Viewers weren't just watching a game, they were watching their favorite celebrities lie to each other. The game itself is silent. The magic, the noise, the laughter, and the screams all came from the third-party voice chat applications, most notably Discord. The emergency meeting was the digital stage. It was here that the game transformed from a simple set of tasks into a raucous, hilarious, and often chaotic social event. The shouts of sus, a term that the game single-handedly pushed into the global lexicon, became the rallying cry. These explosive, personality-driven moments were perfectly calibrated for virality. A 30-second clip of a streamer pulling off an impossible lie or being caught in a ridiculous one was tailor-made for TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts. This created an exponential feedback loop. See a funny clip? Download the game to play with your friends, create your own funny moments, and share them. The game was not just a product, it was a self-replicating media format. But there is a final, deeper layer to its psychological appeal. The game arrived at the exact moment the world was reckoning with the concept of imposter syndrome. In 2020, we were all faking it. We were faking productivity while working from home, faking stability in the face of a global crisis, faking normalcy for our families.
We all felt in some way like we were the imposter just trying to complete our tasks without being discovered. Among Us took this abstract internal anxiety and made it literal, playful, and most importantly, shared. The game's central question, who is the imposter, was a question everyone was already asking themselves. It was the right game at the right time, but it was more than that. It was a social lifeline. It was a digital town square that allowed us to feel the thrill of deception and the comfort of community, all at a time when we were profoundly, desperately alone.
If the rise of Among Us was a spark hitting a powder keg, the explosion that followed consumed the entire culture. The game didn't just become popular, it became a global language. It escaped the confines of Twitch and YouTube and infected the mainstream consciousness with a speed that few media properties in history have ever matched. At its absolute peak, in November of 2020, Among Us had nearly 500 million active players, not downloads, active players in a single month. It was, by this metric, the most popular game in the history of the world. This level of saturation meant it was no longer a game, it was a cultural phenomenon. And the most visible artifact of this was the birth of a new universal vernacular. The word sus was the primary export. Short for suspicious, this simple three-letter accusation became the defining slang of the era. It was used in classrooms, in business meetings, on social media, and in family text chains. It was a perfect, concise shorthand for the ambient paranoia of the time. But the game's impact went far beyond slang. It created a new form of digital pareidolia, the Among Us crewmate shape. People began seeing it everywhere, in trash cans, in fire hydrants, in chicken nuggets. A single, armless, bean-like shape had become as instantly recognizable as a like button or a stop sign. The game became a meme factory, producing an endless stream of content that dominated the internet for months. Red is always sus, emergency meeting, the ejection screen, the shh intro. These became universal templates for jokes about politics, sports, and daily life. The game's low-fidelity art style made it endlessly remixable, and the community-generated content, the fan art, the animations, and the songs created a vortex of self-sustaining hype. This cultural saturation reached its apex on October 20th, 2020. In a move that signaled the game's ultimate crossover, U.S. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez hosted a Get Out the Vote stream playing Among Us on Twitch. Her lobby was a who's who of the streaming elite, including Pokimane and Hassan Piker. The event was not just a curiosity, it was a watershed moment in political communication. Ocasio-Cortez's stream peaked at over 430,000 concurrent viewers, making it one of the most watched individual streams in Twitch history. It demonstrated a new, authentic way for politicians to connect with a younger demographic using the generation's own digital town square. But this mainstream explosion had a cost. The game's simplicity, its greatest asset, was also its greatest vulnerability. As the player base swelled from thousands to hundreds of millions, the tiny three-person team at InnerSloth was completely and totally overwhelmed. They were, in effect, trying to manage the world's busiest theme park with a staff of 3. The first and critical problem was infrastructure. The game's servers, built by a single programmer for a niche audience, were buckling under the strain. Players were met with constant disconnects, lag, and server full messages. But a more sinister problem emerged: hacking. Because the game was simple, it was easy to exploit. Hackers flooded public lobbies, instantly killing all crewmates, spamming political messages, or threatening to dox players. This Eris Loris hack, named after its creator, became infamous, making the game unplayable for millions and creating a PR nightmare for the small studio. The developers were in an impossible position. They were trying to simultaneously fix the game's engine, moderate a community of 500 million, and fight a global army of hackers.
All of this was happening while they were still working on their announced sequel, Among Us 2. The strain was immense. They were victims of their own impossible success, drowning in the wave they had created. In September 2020, they made their most important decision. They officially and shockingly canceled Among Us 2. In a blog post, they explained their reasoning. They couldn't, in good conscience, move on to a new project when the original game, the one the entire world was playing, was in such desperate need of support. They announced they would instead pour all their resources into rebuilding the original from the inside out. This was a massive technical undertaking, akin to rebuilding a jet engine while the plane was still in mid-flight at capacity. While celebrated by the community, this decision locked the developers into a grueling race against time. They had to fix the present while building the future. They needed to add new content to keep the massive audience engaged, but basic features like a friend system, account moderation, and colorblind support were all missing. The cultural moment was burning white-hot, but the game itself was a tinderbox. The mainstream spotlight also brought an unintended consequence: the meta-gaming of a simple party game. What was once a casual game of laughter and betrayal became, for many, a hyper-optimized competitive esport. Streamers and dedicated players had solved the game. A rigid set of rules emerged. Never trust someone who self-reports a body. Always stack in groups. Finish your tasks at all costs. If you were new to the game and didn't know these unwritten rules, you were often kicked, shouted at, and accused of being toxic or throwing the game. The casual, fun-loving social experiment had, in many lobbies, calcified into a rigid, unforgiving high school clique. The game that brought everyone together was now, for many, an exclusionary and stressful experience. The peak was bright, but it was fragile. The game had united the world, but the cracks were beginning to show.
Like all cultural supernovas, the light from Among Us could not burn that brightly forever. The fall was as swift as the rise. As 2021 dawned, the world began to, slowly and unevenly, reopen. The profound, universal isolation that had made the game a necessity began to recede. We could see our friends in person again. The playgrounds, both real and digital, shifted. At the same time, the game's core loop, once so addictive, became repetitive. The streamers and content creators who had amplified its fame moved on to the next big thing, as they always must. The massive player base fractured and dissipated. But to dismiss it as a mere fad is to miss its legacy. Among Us did not invent the social deduction game, but it perfected its digital form and introduced the concept to hundreds of millions of people. It created an entirely new genre for the streaming age, paving the way for a wave of successors like Goose Goose Duck and Dread Hunger. It proved, definitively, that a game's success is not tied to its launch day, that a 2-year-old failed project could, under the right circumstances, become the biggest game in the world. For InnerSloth, the legacy was transformative. They were no longer 3 friends in a garage, but the stewards of a global brand. They continue to update the game, adding new roles, new maps, and the features they raced to build during the peak, solidifying its place as an evergreen digital party game, a modern classic. But its true legacy is cultural. The game is a perfect, playable time capsule of 2020. It's a snapshot of a world trapped inside, a world defined by paranoia, misinformation, and a desperate search for connection. It was the digital town square we built when all others were closed. It was the game that reminded us that even when we are alone, we can still find ways to laugh, to scheme, and to survive together.
The story of Among Us is not just about a game. It's about a moment in human history when the world was forced to connect in new ways. It's a story of trust, deception, and the surprising simple tools we use to find community. The next Among Us is already out there, dormant, waiting for a new cultural moment to ignite it. The real question is not what we will be playing, but why we will need to. What social need will it be answering? What part of our humanity will it reflect back at us? Because in the end, we are all crewmates, just trying to do our tasks, looking for the imposters among us.
Join the discussion in the comments below. If you want to join the next investigation, subscribe to AI Trend Reveal and hit the notification bell so you are here when we unseal it.